So the history of surrealism or magical realism, those terms in terms of how they apply to Illinois artists or Chicago artists, it's a little difficult to pinpoint, but it does seem to sort of enter into the conversation in the 1940s or so. One of the first exhibitions, Catherine Koo, who was a curator at the Art Institute of Chicago, did an exhibition about, a national exhibition about abstract and surrealist art, which may have been the introduction of the term probably to a much broader audience of artists and non-artists. But the term surrealism, which is really an art movement spanning through the earlier part of the 20th century and maybe falling out of favor post-World War II, is this type of work that looks at, that juxtaposes a psychological and a sort of irrational point of view with against the ideas of realism and representation. It also, as a movement, made room for experimentation, like automatic writing and a certain unconscious exploration of subject matter. And Chicago collectors and museums really had a penchant towards surrealism. It had already fallen out of fashion in Europe and in New York in the 40s and 50s. It was a major part of institutional and private collections in Chicago. Artists would have been looking at that, you know. But it's also a limiting term. It's somewhat, it doesn't necessarily tell us a lot about Abercrombie, Gertrude Abercrombie, or more contemporary Carolyn Klockman or Julia Tekla. Abercrombie called herself a surrealist, but she didn't call herself a surrealist until like towards the end of her career, really, more in retrospect. So I think about this term of magical realism, which is really a literary term, but it's that idea of taking the day-to-day, the sort of known reality of the world, and injecting magical elements into it. And those magical elements might be something coming from the dream world or from the unconscious. Maybe it's coming from literature. I think it might be erasure, the idea of removing something of the real world so that we get, like with Carolyn Klockman's painting, these costumes which look sort of European and old-fashioned, almost actually look like they're looking at someone like the Nabi or something like that. But by removing the body, they become like ghosts that drift through the room. It's like magic. They're moving by magic. So surrealism, magical realism, metaphysical, whatever the term you might want to use it, I think what runs through the unconscious of these artists is this idea of things moving through the world of their own volition that are surprising, that are sometimes challenging, but certainly make us think about what it is to be real and unreal.